just wanted to take a minute to talk about what it's like being autistic and recovering from trauma. You see, not a lot of people talk about this. They talk about the specific traumas, but they don't really talk about the recovery from it, because it's a challenge. You see, I visualize everything. And when I say I visualize everything, I actually have to translate things into words, usually. It's gotten easier over the decades, but I'm very much used to having to fill in gaps, like seeing what it is. And I've trained myself with programmed responses, so that's how I'm able to fit in so fluidly, or fluently. But when it comes to recovery from trauma, those of us that visualize, we actually quite often end up reliving those events, which is unfortunate, because that makes it that much harder, that much more difficult. And plus, we've got negative reinforcement left and right. Like, if you're like me, I'm technically millennial. I was raised by, I think, baby boomers, because both my parents are in their 60s going on 70s. So they're of that age group. And they grew up not knowing jack about autism or anything like that. Plus, the psychological community kind of screwed us over. They're like, oh wait, you can change their behavior instead of understanding it. And we've had to suffer for decades because of that misunderstanding. But God forbid any of those self-righteous psychologists actually step up and say, oops. Psychologists don't do that. It's why I kind of look down on my industry. And I call it my industry because I would be defined as an expert under the colloquial definition, but that's beside the point. You want to hear about recovery. So because of my expertise and familiarity, or whatever you want to call it, because without a PhD, nobody takes you seriously. Unfortunate. And then with PhDs, people take you way too seriously. So here we are, we're basically reliving our traumas and having to face them honestly, meaning our part, their part. And I think the strongest phrase I've ever learned was, it is what it is. Like, I know my parents will never apologize to me. My father will never apologize for kicking me out at 18. He'll never apologize for basically, he won't even recognize being a strong part of what ended up landing me homeless and losing me a stream of income because he cut corners. That's just his nature. My mother, she'll never admit any sort of fault. I've never heard her once admit fault. Never in my life. That's the family I come from. And a lot of us come from families like that. And so once we're going through these traumas, not only do we have to relive the traumas, but we hear, in facing those traumas honestly, we hear the voices of people we care about in our head. Because I very much love my family. I very much do. I never want to see any of them again, because it's too much of a risk. Like, why would I want to see, like, for example, I love my sisters. And my sisters haven't really wronged me, but they did choose sides, whether they knew it or not. Because going by the gaslighting of other family members, that puts us at a disenfranchisement. We are disenfranchised from it. Meaning, you guys are thinking, well, I guess no, if you. And that's the families we come from. And so basically we're facing these traumas alone, having to relive them, and hearing all the negative reinforcement that has come along with our lives. Isn't that something? And of course, another big trauma that plays a part in this is we believe that nobody's going to believe us. It's why I've kept evidence of the crazy, insane life I've lived. And it's been insane for an autistic individual, and as pronounced as I really am, you guys can never tell how pronounced my autism is. None. Not even close. And you'll never be able to relate to what goes through my head. In fact, a lot of autists can't fully relate to what's going through my head on a regular basis. And honestly, if you saw what goes through my head, both the good and the bad, you'd be like, whoa! But for me, it's natural. So we're having to relive these memories. We're having to hear all of these things coming from a place of disenfranchisement where we basically have no one to talk to. The worst moments of my life, the 4 worst moments of my life, I had to face it alone because there wasn't anybody to call. I had to face those things alone and deal with it on my own. Deal with the trauma, deal with the neglect, deal with the harm, deal with the abuse. And through all of that, we become stronger. Now, in becoming stronger, there's a couple caveats to that. So, for example, those people that say it is what it is, those folks, they don't really reflect compassion. They simply reflect acceptance. And acceptance is a thing, granted. But there needs to be a level of compassion because it's not just, and I hate this idea of forgiving other people, but you have to. I really hate that because to me it seems like a cop-out. Oh, they got away with it, whatever. And I have to solace my mind with, well, at least they'll die alone and they'll be forgotten within a generation. Cool. But it doesn't fix the harm that was done. I mean, think about it this way. If you kick somebody out at the age of 18 without any real prep, you're kicking out a baby into the world. Let's just be real on that one. And if you're doing so, it's usually a power move or you just want to get rid of them. In my father's case, it was a little bit of both. And in my mother's case, she considered herself to have no power over her husband. So ultimately, we have to face these things on our own. And I don't know if you looked at my earlier videos and you're looking now, that was 50 pounds ago and a year ago. And you know, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm not triggered as much anymore. Now, do I still end up in a bad mood when I go by the old house? Absolutely. But I also recognize those bad moods. And that's a good step. When you can recognize your mood swings and all of that, that's a good step in your healing process. But you've got to face the traumas first, because if you don't reconcile with them and realize, okay, this is what happened, no exaggeration, no nada, this is what happened. And it is what it is. What am I going to do about it? That's your next step. What am I going to do? Am I going to keep wallowing and feeling sorry for myself? Am I going to let this trauma control me? Or am I going to wake the hell up and handle business? I chose the former. And it's been a long, long road. In fact, the fact that I can talk to you this coherently and this dispassionately about it is really impressive to me, given where I was. I mean, I have cried a lot in the past year, and I'm not the person to cry. I'm that dude that breaks a bone and walks it off. And I have. More than once. More than once. And I'm kind of proud of that. I'm a tough SOB. And I've weathered things that would break a lot of people. Not everybody. But it would definitely taint and tint the viewpoint of some people. Because yeah, those dudes, they're like, oh, just get over it. Do you think that the shit that they've gone through doesn't follow them? Do you think that there aren't moral wounds to how they handled certain situations? Do you honestly believe that they are fully okay with what happened? And that it's not following them or their future decisions ever? No. Nobody is that strong. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much of a face you want to put on. You're not that strong. So many people are not that strong. They want to be, and they believe this whole fallacy of fake it till you make it. But the end all be all is you are who you are because of the things you went through and how you reacted to them. The choice remains, how are you going to react to them going forward? I've chosen compassion, kindness, I've chosen to only pursue careers that I believe could help others. Because I feel at my best when I'm helping others. I always do. I like to see people learn. I like to see them grow. It makes me feel good about humanity. So is it a little bit selfish? Yeah. But would I do it anyway? Yeah. I've literally offered the shirt off of my back, and I've taken the shirt off of my back for a homeless person. Okay? That's in your heart. You would never know if you never watched this video. That's what's in your heart. My heart was broken. And it still hurts. Because of the relationship I lost. Projecting toxicity. But that's the thing. If you don't deal with your traumas, you will project toxicity. It's gonna happen. It took 3 years for it to start doing it with me, but all the insecurity and all the people saying, get you a real girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. Like, you've met my girlfriend, but thank you for bringing me down anyway. And it's one of those things where it's a little bit bitter. It's still sore. And I'm not sure that wound is ever going to fully heal. Because I'm still very much in love. But we do what we have to do in order to continue going. Because life is a journey, it's not just a destination. And if it's your destination, go kill yourself right now. Because if there's no value in the journey, why continue on? And no, that's not encouragement to go kill yourself, but at the same time, you're staying alive for a reason. You've got this anticipation, you've got this hope. And I used to hate hope. I hated hope. Part of me still does, but hope is necessary. Hope tells us that there's going to be a brighter day tomorrow, in some tomorrow, and it keeps us going. So as much as I used to look at phone poles with just admiration of, okay, hit the gas and make sweet love. Much as I used to do that, now I can look at phone poles and be like, you know what? That's just a piece of wood. I've taken my emotions out of things. And I feel so much better for that. I mean, I've still got, a little bit of emotion to deal with. And I've still got the residuals of my reactions to trauma. Because there's plenty of reactions to trauma. You better believe it. I used to walk around wishing, like I wish somebody would. But my anger is the familial programmed response to depression. Because you're not supposed to show depression, you're supposed to hold it in, right? All that does is just create toxicity within yourself. Plus, if you're living in a toxic environment for 3 damn years, one other thing that I have noticed too, don't tell your problems to family. If family hasn't helped you so far, judge them by their actions, not their words. They'll tell you, oh, I love you, they'll tell you that stuff. But that doesn't mean they mean it. People will gaslight you left and right. I know the family is talking about me behind my back. I know this. I've known this. They did the same thing to my Uncle Tim, who was the same way that I am. And you know what? I wear that as a badge of honor. Because my Uncle Tim, he was a hero in the Cold War. He was a code breaker. And he ended up passing away after completing the Voynich manuscript. I'm sitting on the biggest digital collection of Voynich documents in the world. Except for the fact that I passed on to somebody better than me that's familiar with cryptography. I'm also sitting on his codices. I admire the man, and I wish that the family hadn't gaslit that man too, because I could have learned from him. I could have learned. But that's what family does, is they discount people like myself and like some of you watching. If you're neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, Asperger's, doesn't really matter. Family likes to discount because they don't understand us. They don't want to take the time to understand us. And they want us to conform to what they expect. Judge family by their actions, not their words. And if you don't give value to their words, don't give value to their words. Those phrases that they say that's going to repeat through your head through your trauma recovery, brush it off. And understand that those were said by people who basically didn't have any clue how to raise kids. True story. They were the product of free-range parenting, those that survived. A lot of them ate paint chips because they were sweet and full of lead. A lot of them had abusive parents. They come from abusive families. Is that an excuse? No, it's just the reason. The reason for their insanity. Because they raised you the way that they were raised, thinking it'll come out different. So the long story short is, don't be afraid of your recovery, but be prepared for it. And take care of yourself. Don't let the effects of other people cause you to harm your body, to neglect yourself. Pace yourself on this. I took on 16 plus, like realistically, it's closer to about 27 to 28 years of trauma. Like just building up and cumulative and so on, repetitive, and like people in the world, they are shitty. And if you're a shitty person, go to hell. And you're that one, if you are a shitty person, if you're mean to other people deliberately, please hit a phone pole, because the world will be better off without you. Or please learn to recover yourself and get over your damn trauma that makes you an asshole. Man the hell up. Don't be a baby. And I know those were trigger words for some people. I apologize. But for some folks, that's all they know. That's all they understand. And so you got to hit them with how they understand things. It's an unfortunate consequence, but it's life. People are going to be what they are. People are selfish inherently. People are sociopathic and narcissistic. And they don't want to spend the time to be better because they're too stubborn and being selfish. I want about me. It's about me. I want to get my word in on this conversation. My opinion matters. I know something even though I never learned it. But you're wrong. And this is why. Look at you. You're fat. They start attacking you, not your argument or what you're saying. I've run into that many times. Don't let them bring you down. Me giving you these examples of, in fact, I think it's very accurate. I think that's very accurate to how some people act. But just because they act like children doesn't mean you have to. And it doesn't mean you have to react to them. Right now I'm ignoring the hell out of two little kids that want to think that they're adults and they don't clean dishes and nothing like that. They don't clean up after their doggies' poopies. They want somebody else to do it for them. But they're adults. Yay! Okay? These kids are going to grow up to be adults. And they're going to grow up to be shitty adults. And they're going to raise shitty-ass children as shitty-ass adults unless they change who and what they are. It's your choice whether or not to be low class or not. It's your choice. I am a higher class when I speak. But class is determined by your attitude. In fact, class really isn't determined by etiquette. It's determined by attitude. The people at the top are extremely self-conscious and insecure. I know I just went off on a divergent, but I'm neurodivergent, so woo-hoo. Have fun with everything. Have fun every day. Embrace the differences that are you. And accept yourself. I'm going to do a video in a second, later on today. But I hope this educates some of you out there, because dealing with trauma is a damn thing. And it's even worse about the idea that we have to do it because of other people who will never own up to it. That's life. It is what it is. So what you gonna do about it? Stay blessed, y'all. You're gonna get through this. You made it this far, you're gonna nail the next one. Get it.